Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Talk with AVC. I am AVC. I am joined once again by the fabulous Matthew Sapedi and Michael Terzakis, as well as first-time guest Gavin O'Grady. Say hello, guys. How are you doing today?
AVC, thanks for having me on.
What's going on, AVC?
Always, man, always. All right, to move over to the MLB. What was a quiet offseason got really hot really quick. Now, there were a couple of big-time trades. Obviously, there was the Snell-Darvish trade to the Padres. And then for the two Met fans in here, I know the big one was Francisco Lindor. The move finally was done. Arguably, I would say a fleecing by the Mets. Gavin, I'm going to ask you first, and then I'll get to the Mets fans. Don't worry, I'll get to you guys. In your opinion, which trade will make a bigger impact? The Snell trade to San Diego or Lindor to the Mets?
I mean, I think both trades are massive for both organizations. I mean, let's look at first with Blake Snell and Yu Darvish to San Diego, and that shows. Listen, the Padres are trying to win now, and they got a great young core in San Diego, and they're trying to get their fan base revved up, and they're trying to challenge the Dodgers out in the West, in the NL West. The Dodgers have reigned supreme over that division for quite a long time now. Not San Francisco is really the last team that gave them any sort of trouble. That's just San Diego is now in a very good position to challenge them for that crown. And then you switch the NL East now, and damn the Mets, man. I mean, load it up. I'm kind of happy for the Mets. I'm a Yankees fan, but I'm happy, Mets got, who they wanted. They got, and first of all, like you said, they absolutely fleeced the Indians. I don't know what the Indians were. They didn't even ask for it. When that trade was announced, I was like, let's see what the Mets gave up. They gave up absolutely no one. I mean, it was unbelievable. But Lindor and Carrasco, I mean, they have a great lineup now. I looked at their lineup, their projected lineup, just, on one of these apps or whatever by one of the fans who posted on Twitter. That lineup is very good. So Mets just have to shore up some bullpen issues. I know they'll have Seth Lugo hopefully move there, but damn, two great trades. And that NL East now is going to be very good, very good. So I want to see what these Mets guys think, though. So
Sapedi, I'll start with you.
Finally. I mean, we were waiting so long to make a huge splash. There's also new owner, Stevie Cohen.
Isn't it great having good ownership? Isn't good ownership a great thing?
It's a beautiful thing, ABC, let me tell you. And now imagine if you just add George Springer in center field, which who knows what's going to happen. But anyway, Lindor and Carrasco to the Mets, giving up nearly nothing. It feels phenomenal. Lock Lindor up for 10 freaking years, 300 plus mil. I don't care. I don't have words to describe how happy I was when this trade happened. I think he's the shortstop of the Mets franchise for years to come. And Carrasco's a good arm. We needed a middle of the rotation arm, and a lot of the guys in free agency weren't jumping out at me personally. Is like, oh yeah, I want to get this guy. Maybe Odorizzi, but not really. But I really like adding Carrasco into the deal for even whatever how many years he has left. But I'm just so excited for what this team could be.
I think the Carrasco part of the deal was very underrated, considering obviously you got a guy in Lindor who is, if I had to write up everything I could think of for a franchise player, that's Francisco Lindor. He's got the looks, he's got the personality, he can hit, he can run, he can field, he's one of the best shortstops, he can steal bases if he has to, he's a switch hitter. Nobody's ever said anything bad about the guy. The guy knows how to handle the press, which is very important in New York. Just everything you could want, any place shortstop. Everything.
He's also got a ton of playoff experience too. People, exactly. He was on a lot of those playoff teams, and he can help lead that, a Mets franchise that, not since that 2015 magical run to the World Series, they haven't had that much playoff success. So now you got a guy coming in. That's awesome. So,
but you get that. And Carrasco, a middle rotation arm, which was depth in the starting rotation, given some of the injury proneness of guys like Syndergaard for the Mets, is probably important. But Terzak, I'm not going to steal too much of your thunder here. Sorry about that. Your reaction to the move?
I mean, this is monumental. I mean, this is a franchise-changing move for the Mets. And this is how I see it is this kind of symbolizes the Steve Cohen era. You know, you get a new guy in who says he's going to make all these changes. They're going to spend like a big market team. And now they've backed up what they said, and they got a franchise-changing player. I mean, right now, Francisco Lindor is the face of the franchise for the Mets. You know, DeGrom's great, but this guy's got the personality. He's got the swagger that just bleeds New York, and I think I'd be shocked if we didn't extend him. And on top of that, you get a quality middle-of-the-rotation arm, like Matt was saying. So this is just an A move for the Mets. The only thing to make it an A+, pay the man. Pay the man. No question. Whatever you want.
I would agree. This would probably follow similar to the Mookie Betts deal. And back to what Gavin said about the absolute fleecing of this. I mean, it's always obvious the Indians are always trying to cut costs because their owner is the opposite of Steve Cohen. He just refuses to spend any sort of money. They gave up more for Edwin Diaz than they gave up for Francisco Lindor.
Which is crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Which is insane. It is. It's insane. You look at this, and this just screams desperation on the Indians' perspective to just jettison a guy who's going to demand top-tier money. And, you know, I can't imagine. I mean, this offseason, you wonder if it wasn't for the pandemic and more teams had more money to throw around or were more willing, you wonder if the market would have been a little bit more competitive, and that I would still imagine he'd end up with the Mets, just given that they'd probably be willing to give up more for him than anybody else because he was probably the best fit there. But you'd have to wonder if they'd get this absolute fleece job without the pandemic making everybody kind of gun-shy this offseason.
I mean, I think you're 100% right. Let's just think about this. If, you know, pandemic doesn't come and all these teams are still making their good revenue with, you know, tickets and concessions and jersey sales, you know, and all this, maybe the Mets have to give up a little bit more to get this guy. And also maybe DJ LeMahieu signs with the goddamn Yankees already. I mean, this is –
Gavin, I don't even know what to say at this point with it.
you know, like – it's not. I credit the Mets, man, for Steve Cohen. He promised and he delivered. I mean, he opened up his wallet, and now look what this franchise has. Carrasco is a great pitcher, middle of the starting rotation, and like you said, Lindor is a cornerstone player now for years to come. And he got them for nothing. Let's just say nothing. So you have to credit the man. He said
you have to
tell you what he's going to do. So,
and another key thing for the Mets that allowed them to do this trade is they were able to take on $31 million because, well, Steve Cohen was the only owner who didn't lose a significant amount of money from the 2020 season because the Wilpons were paying salaries that year.
Yeah,
correct. That's
they really have
correct.
Big advantage.
And as far as the whole about what's next for the Mets, I wouldn't imagine a continuous shopping spree. I would imagine probably a fewer lower key signings to add some bullpen depth. And I don't think you need to do that much else. I would wait until the actual season starts to see what you got at that point. And then if I was going to make another move, wait till the deadline. And obviously hope that Pete Alonso returns to his 2019 form.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I think what this move signifies for the Mets, most importantly, is franchise credibility. For a long time, and I know you guys are kind of biased, for a long time, the Mets were kind of viewed as a clown franchise, mostly just compared to the point that you're right next to the Yankees, so it's kind of hard not to appear that way when the Wilpons were running the place. But this move, I mean, if I'm a free agent in the future, the Mets have got to be one of my top considerations for destinations at this point. Once you see what they've done in development and now they're finally willing to spend the money to acquire the big talent, that's just huge for them. But we got one big market team that seems to be moving in the opposite direction. and that's the Chicago Cubs. It almost seems like a blip on the radar. It almost seems like 100 years ago when they ended the drought and won that 2016 World Series. And now everything seems to be coming apart. Not just the trading of Yu Darvish. They've now lost Kyle Schwarber in free agency. And rumors are flying that guys like Baez and Bryant are on the trading block. So, Sapiti, I'm going to start with you. What's the right move here for the Cubs?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know. I'm not sure what this team is doing right now. Seems like they're just looking to unload talent. I feel like a lot of this won't come to fruit. I don't think we're gonna see Baez moved. I don't really think we're gonna see Bryant moved either. And I could be wrong on that, but I don't feel like it's gained enough traction recently that we're gonna see something like that happen. I'm not really sure what direction this franchise is headed in, because Theo Epstein left, and right when that happened, it seemed like everything was going down. So I don't really know where this team's going right now.
And that's possibly the worst thing you could say about a franchise, is that you don't have a direction. I mean, if you're rebuilding, you're rebuilding. If you're competing, you're competing. But when you're directionless, that's when you end up like a team like I'm going to make a perfect example. The Pirates. Does anyone remember when the Pirates, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago now, they were like a consistent wild card team for like a year or two?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right after they lost to the Cubs in that divisional round, they just seemed kind of there. Like, they just kind of made moves for the sake of making them. They didn't really want to give up the farm to go over the edge, but they weren't selling off veteran pieces. In fact, they were adding guys, bringing guys back like Sean Rodriguez and players like that. And it just kind of seemed like this franchise that was just kind of moving nowhere.
It was kind of like an attempt to be buyers.
Yeah, it was an attempt to basically be the St. Louis Cardinals, who are probably the model in terms of consistency when it comes to not having to spend a ton of money but consistently developing players. They're the anomaly, though. They're not the
And I'll tell you what, though. I think that with Chicago, first of all, it didn't help that obviously Theo Epstein left by any means, and it didn't help that they went out the first round to Miami, who was very – listen, Miami, you got to give them credit, give Mattingly credit, but I will say this. Miami was not the most talented team.
No.
By any means. Chicago had a ton of more talent. And the fact that Miami won that game, I think, kind of pushed them to kind of start selling now. But I think the problem with the Cubs was after the 2016 win and the years now following, I think it seems like the Cubs have made the attempt to try, but they have failed. They don't know what piece to bring in to push them over the hump to try to get them into the championship series rounds or even back to the World Series. And that's what it seems like to me. They don't know what pieces to add. Because think about the team. They had the talent. You look at their roster, they had great talent. But they couldn't find that piece where that was going to push them above all these other teams in the NL to get them to the World Series. And that's where it seems like now they're kind of like, all right, well, we had the pieces. We didn't know what to do. What's going on now? And like you said, they are directionless. There's no reason to say it. They are a directionless franchise right now. I feel for the fans in Chicago because I'll tell you what, I couldn't have been happier for them when they beat Cleveland that year. I think that's one of the best moments so far of the millennium since the 2000s of Chicago winning that World Series. So I feel bad for the fans. I hope they get back together because when Chicago's good and the Cubs are good, and Wrigley Field's rocking, I really think it's good for the MLB, and I like seeing it. So,
here's my deal with the Cubs. I feel they waited too long to tell themselves they're sellers. Like the last 2 years, they've been a good team. They've been over 500. They've been competing for the playoffs, but they didn't. I don't know. I didn't see them as serious World Series contenders. And now you're entering a period where Baez and Bryant are going to be free agents. Rizzo's getting old. I mean, he's not
the same player.
He's getting up there in age, and he's not the same player. Wilson Contreras is poor defensively, and top that off with a couple of bad contracts, and now you're kind of like, all right, what are we doing? Because Chris Bryant isn't the same player he was when he won the MVP. Javi Baez he's a good player, but he's got 1 year control left. No one is giving up the farm for Javi Baez, 1 year of Javi Baez. Same with Chris Bryant. And now this team's just kind of left in kind of a rut, like, okay, we can sell these players off, but we're not really getting much. Like, the Cubs want more than any team is willing to offer for Chris Bryant. So I think they should have started selling off pieces earlier, and now they're in a bit of a hole. The only good news is that the NL Central is pretty weak, so they could sell off some pieces for decent prices and still compete in their division. But I don't know. I don't like the direction the Cubs are going in one bit. I think they waited too long to sell.
What's the old Grant Ritchie saying? Rather trade him a year too early than a year too late. And I think that's really what you hit on there, Tazakis. I agree. I think it was the perfect storm for the Cubs to kind of just take a nosedive. You know, when they won the World Series, they had a lot of their pitching staff was considerably older than a lot of others in the league. So you knew that wasn't going to be the same with guys like Lester and Wade Davis and guys like that, which just weren't the same after they won the World Series. And then their superstars in the lineup just all started to slump at the same time. Bryant, Baez, Contreras, Schwarber. How many times have we seen that guy and said that guy could be a top 10 power hitter? And then how many times has he been sent back down to the minors because he can't hit a baseball?
Yeah, it comes out and he hits 150 for the year. Yeah,
the guy had no consistency. Then they're hamstrung by the Jason Hayward contract, and you're right. They should have blown it up probably in 2019. But what would have been the city of Chicago's reaction had you blown it up, 3 years after winning the World Series? And now you're probably not going to get much more than the Indians got for Lindor if you're going to try to dump these guys. I mean, no one's trading for Baez the year before he becomes a free agent. Bryant, maybe if he returns to form, but nowhere near what the Cubs would value him as. I don't think anyone's taking on Rizzo's contract at this point. Contreras is basically the Gary Sanchez of the National League. He's not quite that bad. He hits quite a bit better than Sanchez does, but you're right, his defense is nowhere near what it was expected to be. And I pray for Cubs fans because this is going to get ugly before it's going to get good.
And they were another team that was hurt by the pandemic a lot too.
Yeah, 100%.